This is session 2 of 2 for our Tuesday night certificate for in youth work. This is our final session. So we spent 2 weeks on this. Tonight, I'm going to do just a brief overview, a summary of what the unit is about, and this is part 1. Part 2 will be a recording where we'll have some learners jump in and do their skills assessment, the role plays. There will be the same scenario and lots of different learners coming at this their own way, but they'll be meeting all of the requirements that sit around that assessment piece. Role plays that we do in classes are managed differently. If you're not doing your role plays in classes, please be comfortable with that. Unless it says this will be done with an assessor, then you will be doing those role plays mostly on your own, or you can book them on a Wednesday night if that's what you need. We're here to help you with that. But tonight we've got some learners who are going to jump in and do their role plays. Others are going to play the client for their peers, and then we're going to do a peer review, which is a slightly different way to come at that. So when you're working with an assessor in real time, they're going to work with you and coach you and debrief and give you where you are strongest, some tips of maybe improving that space as well. It saves you doing a second attempt, but of course we are facilitating that space, and it's part of our class to show you what the skills, which demonstrates that you have that underpinning knowledge around that. And the class will discuss all of that. So this is just a brief overview. I wanted to walk you through just the unit itself, which is CHCPRT025, identify and report children and young people at risk. So to do that, you must recognise it and then respond to that. So the scenario that we're working with in part 2 is around a 5-year-old, and I talk you through the prompts around that for a 5-year-old disclosure and how we'd approach that. A reporting pathway, just an example of that. And then, of course, who do we report to and when do we report? And then we have some immediate do's in a disclosure and some immediate don'ts as well. We'll cover that a little bit more in our skills area. But before we get started, let's do our acknowledgement to country. In the spirit of reconciliation, Hayter Institute of Education acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of this nation and the traditional custodians of the land on which we work, live and study. We express our gratitude for the sharing of this land, our sorrow for the personal, spiritual and cultural cost of that sharing, and hope that we may move forward together in harmony and in the spirit of healing. We pay our respect to all First Nation people and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging, and I extend this acknowledgement out to our wider Hayter community who are watching our recording, and of course any of our learners who are attending our classes. I'm coming to you tonight from Tarrabaland, Bundaland in Queensland. So recognising the flags that represent our diversity, both in our team at Hayter and our community of learners. Oops. Sorry, just don't want to go too fast with that. So as your trainer tonight, I'm Vicky, and if you like the style of our training classes, you will always have an opportunity to be able to leave feedback. We modify our classes, we rely on your feedback so that we can have that continuous improvement space. I really love it if I could get some feedback on what it is that you're enjoying. And of course, if there's anything to share on things you would like us to do differently, we're really open to that as well. Your expectations are our only priority, that and being compliant, setting the standards so that you feel really confident that studying with Hayter, that you have the best qualification and that we support you, not just in classes, but in your learner support through our team, our learner support officers, and you can have time one-on-one with the trainer. Every month you can have 1 hour booking, just one-on-one with you and a trainer to help you in your learning space. So this unit is going to be covering about child abuse. I want you to go softly as you enter into this topic. A lot of people do have a lived experience, but vicariously we can hear a story and it can leave an imprint and impact us as well. Without treatment, without care, without making sure that you're in a safe culture in your classroom as well as in the workplace, these things are where youth workers can burn out, or they may be fatigued, or there may be different things like sleeping patterns or eating, or it may impact their own health. So we are not machines in this space. You need to safeguard yourself while you're safeguarding your clients. And why it matters for youth workers. So your legal and ethical framework is around mandatory reporting. You have a duty of care, confidentiality versus obligation. Your protection is for that child under the age of 18. They often do not have a voice of their own. So everything overrides that. Any member of the public is able to report any matter of concern. The investigation is done by others outside of that, but you must share that information, report it internally when you're working for an organisation, and go to your First Access hypothetical organisation. It's an amazing platform for you and it duplicates what the sector standards are. Understanding what risk is, what risk of harm actually means. I'll talk to you more about that, identifying it. It's in the language. There might be indicators as well. We call them a red flag. It could be that you're trusting your gut around this, the energy that gives off, something that you're sensing. Trust that. That is actually your experience stepping into that space. What are the legal definitions of neglect, abuse, and exposure to violence? You need to understand what that is. That is in the full set of slides. This is our summary slide for our last week. Recognising injuries, that could be a sign of abuse. Neglect is different. It could be that not enough food, not getting them to school on time, not giving them the provisions. Poor hygiene could be an indicator, so can malnutrition. Abuse is where it is intentional. Neglect is where you may not have the capacity. A single incident does not necessarily mean it is abuse, but you could have concerns that it may be. So this is about recognising and responding and reporting. You may see a behavioural indicator, so they're withdrawn. They may act out. That anger could actually have something else underneath all of that: fear, anxiety, and risk-taking. Recognising what could be happening for them at home, housing instability, that's a great deal of external pressure, exposure to alcohol and drugs, domestic and family violence. Your cultural considerations need to come in here, avoiding any bias, and then culturally safe interpretation of those signs. So different internal family systems, that could be the love language in that family, and it could be something completely different in another. It's not our place to judge, it's our place to determine, do we recognise, can we respond, and will we report, which we must. So we spent a bit of time in breakout room where we talked about our reflection, and we unpacked that in our part 2, and then people will come back in after that. We'll do our reflection prompts as well, and we'll do a debrief. It's a pretty heavy going topic, and you'll see us work through that and how everybody will make sure that they've covered it, that 1/3 about the client conversation, 1/3 about ourselves and our peers and colleagues in that space, then 1/3 about the organisation. What can they do to help you in that space? And then, of course, how are we representing that organisation as well? Put this quote up here for us for this particular unit. They said, "I'm scared I'll become like the people who hurt me." I answered, The fact that you're afraid of becoming them is exactly why you won't. You're breaking patterns they never even questioned. That's the difference. We talk a lot about from victim to offender, but it's the understanding and acknowledging that it happened, however, being aware of it. And the fact that you're afraid of becoming like that is exactly why you will not. Responding to those concerns, approaching young people respectfully, regardless of their age, trauma-informed communication, tone, calm, your energy when you step into that space, setting the scene so it feels safe, and then having supportive responses. Making sure that your file notes are accurate. So objective versus subjective notes. So objective is a record of the events and the facts as they've been given to you, rather than putting an opinion around that. We don't have a view because we weren't there. We're only reporting what we hear, and we do that each and every time. We use clear and factual language, but we approach the conversation in a trauma-informed way. Our reporting procedures depend on the organisation that we're with, but we are all under the legal requirement under the Child Safety Act, and then check in your state and territory, and also under the 1988 privacy and confidentiality. When we step into that space, we say the only time we would share any information if there was a risk to yourself or if someone was threatening you, and this is about your safety. That's our priority. We want to make sure that you are safe. That's what youth workers do. So who to report to, child protection, supervisors, and what are the urgency pathways? What is that timeline? First access, when you go into the portal, tells you exactly the time that's associated. It depends if you're a mandatory reporting organisation. However, any person can report. How do we make effective reports? What information to include? Only the facts. And the importance of evidence-based detail. Making sure that we link to the support services. In this case, if it was in Queensland, I would go directly to the Vulnerable Persons Unit, who would bring children's services into that space, social workers and first responders. It's quite likely that you'll be questioned by those people who are doing the investigation. Or they may want a copy of what your incident report says. That's why it's very important. It may be subpoenaed to appear in court as well. And then team-based safety planning, making sure that we unpack that. So we're going to do that in our part 2 of the recording. We're going to have our peer review. And then, of course, those who are getting the evidence will have a debriefing questions that I'm going to be sending to them. And that will be whatever they did in class, plus their debriefing will be how they report that up to their line manager or their supervisor. Making sure that we have healthy professional boundaries. That's for our clients as much as it is for ourselves. Integrity and impartiality, debriefing and self-care, which is what we do at the end of our session 2 in that space. How do we balance building rapport with reporting? The advocacy for youth voice and navigating complex youth needs. This is your work as a youth worker. So we're going to finish our second part of your recordings that come out in part 2 with some frequently asked questions, because it is our final week. But of course, if you're going to see some people do their skills assessment in class, but you will do this on your own, or you can book a Wednesday night with me, which I'm happy to do that, and have some peers from your classes as well step in. So if there's 2 or 3 of you, you can just jump in and we'll get all of you done in that one session. We'll book ahead. Just make sure that you reach out to your learner support officers or email me directly. And that is Vicky, VIKI, @hayderinstitute.edu. which you would have that email in your enrolment. So that's the end of part 1. And what I want you to do now is to jump in and watch the recording around part 2 as well. And if you've got any questions, you need clarification on anything, then watch both recordings and then just make sure that you book in with the learner support officers or reach out. I'll be happy to help you. Stay tuned for part 2.